You're listening to the Racking Focus Podcast. Hey guys, welcome back to the Racking Focus Podcast. Today we are watching Marriage Story. And Marriage Story is Academy Award nominated filmmaker Noah Baumbach's incisive and compassionate look at a marriage breaking up and a family staying together.
And that sound you may hear in the background is a dog lapping water. But
and my wife eating popcorn on the couch.
So there's a lot of noise today in the studio. So Josiah, this is our spoiler-free version of this podcast. We have a full, richly interesting spoiler-filled. So if you've watched the film, go watch that. But what do you think about the movie?
It is so hard to think with that dog drinking and eating. I loved this movie. I also hated watching this family kind of break apart and just the destructiveness of it. So I don't love the content of the film, but I mean the movie is just masterfully crafted. And we've gone to so many movies this year that have been masterfully crafted, and each of them have had their own different unique storytelling styles and visual styles and just the way they do things. And it's really refreshing to see all of my favorite movies this year have been from kind of these independent people. Lulu Wang and Bong Joon-ho and Noah Baumbach is delivering such a well-crafted film. It's just unbelievable. Everything from production design, cinematography, everything. So I want to hear from you real quick. What is one thing that you just absolutely loved about this film?
So I don't want to do the obvious, which is the acting. So I want to talk about the production design as a whole. And one of the things I love in a film is spoiler or Easter egg style references, right? I love when things put things into context, whether it's larger culture or context. And I think that Easter egg culture is unhealthy in some ways,
right?
But I think that it's fun. Like, it's a fun thing.
Yeah.
It's not the point of going to a movie, but it's part of what
makes
fun,
the especially for Star Wars or Marvel films and things like that.
Something like
right?
that. But this film utilizes the same level of detail that we might have as an anticipated Easter egg in design of set, in the props and production design, in the set dressing. In every little part of the film feels like there's real decision making taking place. And it's a film, if you were to watch it multiple times, I think they're going to continue to come out and come out and come out and come out.
Yeah.
And there's something about that makes the film really rich. And those images are all available to you while you're watching. You don't have to go back and hunt for things. Things are there speaking to you during the film. And yet they, in the same way, they're not overwhelming the filmmaking because the acting is so strong in the forefront.
Yeah, I agree with that. The production design was really, really strong. The thing is, like, the second you're in one lawyer's office versus a different lawyer's office because of how the walls are painted, and if it's fluorescent lighting versus window lighting. And if you haven't seen the movie, you don't know what I'm talking about. If you've seen the movie, you do know what I'm talking about. Watching this and saying, "Oh, we are in the not so lavish lawyer's office," right? The not the star lawyer in LA.
Literally coffee and tea. Just watch Coffee and Tea, and you will see how high quality the production design is.
Yeah,
the line through of Coffee and Tea in the film, everything is specific. It speaks to the scene they're in. It speaks to their acting, and it's amazing. And
something that we didn't get to talk about a whole lot in the spoiler field, and this doesn't have anything to do with spoilers, but costume design, I feel like we didn't touch on all that much, but even the costume design going along with the production design was still really, really strong. For me, the cinematography and the color palette and the lighting and all of that stuff, everything just works so well together that they almost don't feel separate. And they don't feel like they stand alone, right? Like, they all work together because this is such a collaborative art piece, and they do all just, it's like they're all these different brushes painting a single portrait of somebody.
You see the director's vision throughout. I think we're watching a masterful use of camera. The camera's doing so many interesting things. And I said this in the spoiler filled, and it never is trite. It's never clever. And yet many of the shots are innovative or unusual or interesting in a way that both tell the story and are interesting to the eye. And that could easily have become hackneyed or feel like it's some graduate student making a crazy film where they want to show off with their
Yeah.
film technique.
Yeah, this
It doesn't
could
do
this
that
could
at
become
all.
pretentious really quickly,
Really,
right? And
truly.
it doesn't. And it doesn't.
Talk to me a little bit about framing and camera movement and blocking that you thought was really powerful, because I know you thought that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with the camera in this movie is that it keeps things simple when it needs to be simple, and it keeps things it keeps things grounded, as if you are somebody who is watching as a third wheel in this relationship, and this entire relationship fall apart as a witness to it, right? You feel I don't know, you just feel like you're a part of it, and you feel the heartbreak because of the you got dog butt in your face. You feel like you're a part of it because the camera is making you feel like you're a part of it, and it keeps you grounded in the space. And there's a lot of really subtle push-ins, and there's a zoom in at one point, and it's just, I don't know what it means, but it makes me feel something. And that's what the camera work did in this movie. It made you feel something. And what I might feel might be different than what you might feel based on if somebody had experience with divorce or doesn't have any experience with marriage, you might have a different feeling coming into this movie and while watching this movie based on how the camera is moving and that sort of thing. And there's a lot of static shots, and it keeps things simple when it needs to be simple.
And I want to talk about acting real quick, because it's
absolutely.
a real treat. And three of these folks are nominated for Golden Globes, and it's all deserved. Scarlett Johansson is amazing. Adam Driver does some work in here that is so raw and specific. I said to you earlier, it reminds me of theater work. Like, it's that raw, bold, intimate work you might do in the theater. And Laura Dern's great. I think Ray Liotta's hilarious and funny. And Alan Alda's performance is really spectacular as well. It felt like I kept getting gifts that a scene would start and there'd be an actor there playing what amounts to a relatively small supporting role. And I'd say, wow, that person's in this film doing this work. That's so incredible.
Well, it's fun, right, to see them randomly show up. And I mean, I think that is partially a testament to Noah Baumbach, director, and saying like, hey, I saw your previous work. I need to work with you at some point, right? I believe we were reading that Robert Eggers, that's how Willem Dafoe hooked up with Robert Eggers for The Lighthouse, right? Was like, hey, I need to be in your next project. And so, there's real talent with a director or with a writer-director when there's these A-list actors who randomly wind up in a film that you have never heard of with a director you've never heard of.
Yeah, and they're not hitting like the home run, and they certainly like the home run role, and they're not also forcing the camera to do something different for them.
Right.
They're letting these people abuse them in a way visually instead of what a normal Hollywood treatment would be. The glossiness of what we might expect to see Ray Liotta treated, but his where he's at, or Laura Dern treated, whatever it may be. Instead, we're seeing people they look real. They look like real folks in the real world. Yeah,
they're not glammed up or anything like that, especially Scarlett Johansson in this movie either. It's just like, everything is so raw and real and emotional. And I loved the movie.
Last thing we should talk about in spoiler free, or at least not maybe the last, but certainly on the way to the last, is writing. And I know that that's your thing. So why don't you talk a little bit about writing?
Oh, I don't know if I would say writing's my thing. I like writing, but I'm not I don't think I'm a good writer, but it's something I look about. Yeah, right. What you guys need to do, if you're listening, you guys need to go onto YouTube and search Nerd Writer and watch his video essay about Noah Baumbach writing realistic dialogue. And then you can go, and if you want to continue watching some other stuff, you can watch the Meyerowitz Stories, which was Adam Sandler's and Dustin Hoffman's film with Noah Baumbach that came out a few years prior. Also written and directed by Noah Baumbach. And what he does in that movie and what he does in Marriage Story is fairly similar, of the dialogue just being so incredibly, I think you put it as naturalistic. I think I said the word realistic, and both of them they can be the same thing if you want to have them be the same thing.
Yeah, mine's just pretentious theater.
Yeah, it's okay.
That's all.
To me, it's realistic because I felt like I was overhearing these people have an argument, or it sounded like the next door neighbors are yelling at each other, and that's what you would. I'm pretty sure I've heard that across this wall here. It just they're tripping over each other, they're talking over each other, they're cutting themselves off, they're cutting other people off, they're yelling like at the top, like there's things that they're doing, and it never feels like George Lucas wrote the dialogue, right? It feels completely and utterly honest and true and real, and to that character. as well, right? So everybody has their own voice, and it's all so cohesive.
Yeah, and to say that with also the knowledge that they're sometimes saying extraordinarily long speeches that require a measure of craft that you could never do accidentally.
Yeah.
So the language within those phrases is so crafted and clean and thoughtful, and yet it reads as natural. It reads as realistic. It reads as honest.
It's unbelievable.
Really incredible.
Yeah.
And the arc of the story too. I mean, there's some very brave choices. There's brave camera choices. There's actors being brave about their emotional choices, and there's writing choices that are brave. It's a long film for the kind of content it is.
Yeah, for a drama like this, 2 hours and 15 minutes is a long time.
Yeah, there's no action set piece. There's no moment of, giant emotional stress between the family where they're running through a city. Everything's paced as human beings are paced. And it does, I said to you before, it feels very theatrical too.
Yeah. But the nice thing though is it doesn't fall into like a boring realism movie. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
I never at one point was like, all right, this is slow going. I need this to pick up. Unlike some other like really like some realism films, and it's just I can't do those that often. But with this, it felt like it captivated me in a way that like I just couldn't look away. I needed to watch this partial train wreck and partial healing happen throughout the film.
Truly human story.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Why don't we rate? Because we want this to be short.
The hard part about rating this is that it's on Netflix, and we don't know. Normally our rating system is: do you want to see us in theaters, see us on at home on the couch, or don't see it at all? Obviously, we can only wish that we saw us in theaters. I think that we both would agree like you need to see this movie first and foremost, and you have access to it at home on Netflix. So just do yourself a favor, and if you have Netflix, watch it. If you don't have Netflix, sign up for the free 30-day trial. This isn't sponsored by Netflix, although I wish it was.
Maybe they'll hear.
Maybe they'll sponsor us with our 14 viewers that we that we have on YouTube. But yeah, go watch this movie. Do you wish that you could see this in theaters?
I do, and part of it's because of those close-ups that we talked about and the push-ins or zoom-ins that were happening. Those moments are so extraordinary. Getting that tight, emotional moment with the actors would be great on the big screen, and I think the music is great, and it would be wonderful to hear the sound in that space. You can't. But it is a movie that I would say if you're going to watch it at home, sit and watch the whole thing.
Yeah.
You're going to be tempted when you're sitting in your house to get up and go to the bathroom or get up and make a sandwich or refill your popcorn. And you don't want to do that because it's a movie you really should experience in the journey throughout it. And in your house, you're going to feel like that doesn't need to happen. And that's one of the reasons why it would be great in the theater.
Right. That's the danger, right?
If you want to hear the big philosophic reason why it's important that you watch it and what this means for cinema, listen to the spoiler filled. There's a nice big section at the end where we talk about that. Just
what you should do is go watch the movie and then listen to the spoiler filled, because we get into it for like 50 minutes. Like it's a long.
It's good.
It's good. There's a lot in there. But that's it.
And right now, if you subscribe to Netflix, not an ad nor a sponsored, you can also see The Witcher that's coming up, which we're going to be doing a podcast series about. And you can also watch The Irishman. Like it's a hot time for Netflix right now. So you might want to just do the 30-day free trial and then commit to it for a while to thank them for their work in getting good cinema out.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, thank you guys for listening / watching to the Racking Focus podcast. We'd love for you to connect with us on social media. So head to rackingfocuspodcast.com and you can find all of our social channels right there.
Hey, we'd love you to talk with us on Twitter or engage in our Instagram. And remember to go to Apple Podcast and leave a review, a 5-star review, so we get bumped up so people can make their own choice about whether they want to listen to us or not by finding us. And then some honesty in the review so we can figure out how we can meet your needs better or do a better job.
Cool. Well, thank you guys again, and we'll catch you next time on the Racking Focus podcast.
Star Wars next, so tune in.
Oh, Star Wars. I'm excited.
Yeah.
All right. Excited. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Racking Focus podcast.